Revel back to the Wild West and uncover the heartbreaking real-life stories behind the stars of The Lone Ranger, 1949 to 1957, a legendary TV series that captivated millions. But behind the glitz and heroics on screen lay a world of mystery, tragedy, and untimely deaths that few ever knew. This deep dive will take you beyond the Hollywood facade, revealing the hidden sorrows, shocking misfortunes, and devastating losses that shaped the lives of the actors who brought the Lone Ranger to life. Are you ready? Because the truth behind the camera might be even more dramatic and heartbreaking than any Western tale ever told. J. Silverheels, born on May 26, 1912, in Ontario, Canada, was best known for playing Tonto, the devoted Native American companion to the Lone Ranger. A talented athlete before entering Hollywood, Silverheels was a champion lacrosse player and a skilled boxer. His career in film and television was often hindered by Hollywood's limited and stereotypical portrayals of indigenous characters. Despite his breakthrough role in the Lone Ranger series from 1949 to 1957, he struggled to escape typecasting, frequently relegated to playing sidekick roles or nameless Native American warriors. Though he later worked as a horse trainer and even founded a scholarship fund for indigenous actors, his career never regained the same prominence. His personal life was filled with challenges. While he married Mary Diroma in 1946 and had children, the demands of Hollywood and the racial prejudice he faced created strains in his family life. He was outspoken about the mistreatment of Native actors in Hollywood, which sometimes led to professional setbacks. In the late 1970s, tragedy struck when he suffered a stroke that left him with significant speech impairments. This once strong and charismatic figure was reduced to a shadow of himself, unable to fully communicate with those around him. His health continued to decline until his death on March 5, 1980, at the age of 67. While he remains an enduring symbol of Native American representation on television, he never fully escaped the limitations imposed on him by an industry reluctant to see him as more than a sidekick. Born in 1926 in Vallejo, California, William "Bill" Ward was a versatile actor and stuntman who made significant contributions to Western films and television. In the iconic series, The Lone Ranger, 1949 to 1957, Ward portrayed various roles, including henchmen, deputies, and townsmen, across multiple episodes. His expertise extended beyond acting. He was a skilled horseman and often performed stunts that required precise falls or jumps from horses. Notably, his own horse, Traveler, served as the stand-in for Silver during scenes necessitating complex maneuvers. Ward's dedication to his craft ensured that he executed stunts safely, earning him respect in the industry. Despite his extensive work, many of his contributions went uncredited, reflecting the often underappreciated role of stunt performers in Hollywood. Details about Ward's personal life, including his romantic relationships and family, remain scarce. The available information primarily highlights his professional achievements, with little insight into his private affairs. This lack of personal documentation is not uncommon among character actors and stunt performers of his era, whose off-screen lives were often overshadowed by their on-screen personas. As of the current date, specific information regarding the later stages of Ward's life, including any personal challenges or developments, is not readily accessible. This absence of data underscores the often unheralded contributions of supporting actors and stunt professionals in the entertainment industry, whose personal narratives frequently remain untold. Clayton Moore, born on September 14, 1914, in Chicago, Illinois, became one of television's most beloved Western icons as the Lone Ranger. Before donning the famous mask, he had a background in circus acrobatics and worked as a model before transitioning into Hollywood. His rugged good looks and deep, commanding voice made him a natural for westerns, and the Lone Ranger turned him into a cultural phenomenon. However, unlike other actors who were able to separate themselves from their roles, Moore became inseparable from the masked hero. He fully embraced the character, making public appearances in costume for years after the series ended, even as his Hollywood career dwindled. Moore's personal life was turbulent. He married and divorced 3 times, struggling to maintain stable relationships. The burden of being forever linked to one character weighed heavily on him, and in 1979, he was hit with a devastating lawsuit from the owners of the Lone Ranger franchise, forbidding him from appearing in public as the character. This legal battle deeply wounded him. He had spent decades living as the Lone Ranger, only to be stripped of his identity. Though the ruling was eventually reversed, the damage had been done. As he aged, he suffered from declining health, but he remained a public figure until his final years. On December 28, 1999, he died of a heart attack at the age of 85. Though he lived a long life, much of it was spent wrestling with the double-edged sword of fame, forever adored as the Lone Ranger but struggling to be seen as anything more. John Cason, born John Lacey Cason on July 30, 1918, in Valley View, Texas, lived the rough-and-tumble life of the villains he often portrayed. A rugged character actor with an imposing presence, he specialized in playing outlaws, henchmen, and tough guys, making him a perfect fit for the Lone Ranger, where he appeared in 9 episodes between 1949 and 1957 as Barney Compton and various other roles. His film career included appearances in Ride, Vaquero, 1953, and The Killing, 1956, but like many character actors, he was often overshadowed by bigger stars. Despite his dedication to his craft, he remained largely unrecognized by mainstream audiences. Cason's personal life was just as gritty as his on-screen persona. He lived hard and fast, often frequenting bars and engaging in fights that mirrored the roles he played. His relationships were tumultuous, and while he was married, he struggled to balance a home life with his unpredictable career. His story took a tragic turn when, on July 7, 1961, at the age of 42, he died in a car accident. The circumstances of his death were particularly grim. He was involved in a violent collision in Ventura County, California, cutting short a life that had already been filled with struggles and missed opportunities. In the end, John Cason was another Hollywood tough guy whose real life turned out to be just as harsh as the westerns he starred in. John Hart, born on December 13, 1917, in Los Angeles, California, briefly stepped into the role of the Lone Ranger between 1950 and 1953 when Clayton Moore was unexpectedly replaced. Though he wore the iconic mask for 54 episodes, audiences never truly accepted him as the legendary masked rider, and his tenure on the show was overshadowed by the looming presence of Moore, who later reclaimed the role. Hart's acting career was filled with ups and downs, primarily landing him in supporting roles in B-movies and TV westerns. He appeared in films like Jack Armstrong, 1947, and The Adventures of Captain Africa, 1955, but never achieved major stardom. Despite his talent and rugged good looks, he was forever remembered as the other Lone Ranger, a label that haunted him for years. His personal life was relatively stable compared to many of his Hollywood peers. He married actress Beryl Braithwaite, and their marriage endured the usual struggles of life in the entertainment industry but remained intact. However, he faced financial struggles after his prime, often taking minor television roles well into his later years just to make ends meet. Unlike many actors of his era, he avoided publicized scandals, but his disappointment in never fully breaking into leading roles left him frustrated. In his final years, Hart battled the physical toll of old age, suffering from the declining health that often plagues those who once lived physically demanding lives on screen. He passed away from complications related to dementia on September 20, 2009, at the age of 91, a man who had worn the Lone Ranger's mask but never truly escaped its shadow. House Peters Jr., born Robert House Peters Jr. on January 12, 1916, in New Rochelle, New York, was the son of silent film star House Peters Sr. Despite growing up in the shadow of his famous father, he struggled to carve out his own path in Hollywood. He became a familiar face in westerns, often playing tough lawmen or rugged cowboys, and appeared in 12 episodes of The Lone Ranger between 1950 and 1957, most notably as Bat Anders. Beyond the show, he found steady work in films like Red River, 1948, and The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, though he never reached leading man status. His most lasting claim to fame was becoming the original Mr. Clean in Procter & Gamble commercials, a role that made his face recognizable but did little to elevate his career. Despite his strong on-screen presence, Peters' personal life was filled with disappointments. The pressures of Hollywood often led to tension at home, and though he was married and had children, he found it difficult to maintain stable relationships. Living in the shadow of his father's fame weighed heavily on him, leaving him constantly feeling like he had fallen short. In his later years, he suffered from declining health, including pneumonia and other complications. He passed away on October 1, 2008, at the age of 92, a man whose career had spanned decades but never quite brought him the recognition he longed for. Lane Bradford, born Myron Lane Bradford Bunn on August 29, 1922, in Yonkers, New York, was a Hollywood workhorse, a prolific character actor who specialized in playing villains in westerns. With his sharp, chiseled features and menacing glare, he was a natural fit for antagonistic roles, and he portrayed various outlaws, including Duke Wade, across 13 episodes of The Lone Ranger from 1949 to 1957. His career spanned hundreds of television appearances, making him one of the most recognizable bad guys of the era. Despite his extensive filmography, he never received the fame or fortune that leading men enjoyed, instead remaining in the shadows of the heroes he helped elevate. While his professional life was filled with steady work, his personal life was less predictable. Bradford was married, but his relationships were often rocky, with long separations due to his relentless work schedule. Hollywood's unforgiving nature meant that once his type of Western villain fell out of favor, roles became harder to find. The pressure of an unstable career and dwindling opportunities took its toll on him. In his later years, he battled health problems, struggling to hold on to the career he had spent decades building. He died from a debilitating stroke on June 7, 1973, at the age of 50, a man whose face was known to millions but whose name was often forgotten. Chuck Courtney, born Charles T. Courtney Jr. on July 23, 1930, in Los Angeles, California, was best known for his role as Dan Reed, the Lone Ranger's young nephew, in the Lone Ranger series, appearing in 14 episodes between 1950 and 1955. With his youthful charm and natural horsemanship, he seemed destined for stardom, but Hollywood had other plans. Despite appearing in various westerns, including Billy the Kid vs. Dracula, 1966, and The Cowboys, 1972, his career never reached the heights he had hoped for. Forever overshadowed by bigger stars, he struggled to secure leading roles and was often relegated to minor or uncredited parts. The frustration of an unfulfilled career weighed heavily on him. His personal life was marked by instability. Though he was married and had children, his family life was fraught with difficulties, exacerbated by his financial struggles and the erratic nature of the entertainment industry. As opportunities dwindled, depression took hold. The weight of his career disappointments and personal troubles led him down a dark path, and on January 19, 2000, at the age of 69, he died by suicide. His tragic passing was a stark reminder of the emotional toll that Hollywood's unforgiving nature can take on those left behind by the industry. Mickey Simpson, born Charles Henry Simpson on December 3, 1913, in Rochester, New York, was a towering figure in Hollywood, both literally and figuratively. With his broad frame and tough demeanor, he became a go-to character actor for playing burly villains and henchmen. In The Lone Ranger, he appeared in 11 episodes between 1950 and 1956, most notably as Ben Boone. His career spanned over 170 film and television appearances, with memorable roles in John Ford's classics like The Searchers, 1956, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, 1949. Despite working with Hollywood legends, he was never more than a background figure, always playing the muscle but never the man in the spotlight. Off-screen, Simpson's life was far from glamorous. Though married, his relationships were often rocky, with long absences from home due to his work in film and television. The stress of an inconsistent career and the physical demands of his roles took a toll on his health. As the Western genre declined, so did his opportunities, leaving him struggling to find work. In his later years, he suffered from heart problems, which ultimately led to his death from a heart attack on September 23, 1985, at the age of 71. He passed away largely forgotten by Hollywood, a man who had been in so many films yet remained just another nameless face to most moviegoers. What do you think about the lives, careers, and deaths of the actors from The Lone Ranger? Which one do you remember the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to catch the latest videos.